MPs from ODM and NASA, let me just say NASA because there were some MPs from ANC as well, went to church on Sunday and were propping up the discussion, or rather pushing for a referendum, the discussion to change to one of actually changing the structure of the executive to include more positions at the top to accommodate more people. That could probably include the talk of a possible inclusion of a prime minister. And the deputy president at another function at the weekend was also made pronouncements with regard to the same argument, and he was rather obviously act by that argument. This is the first time we'd seen the deputy president in that kind of mood. I remember after the elections, he had taken a step back and said, let's not talk about 2022, let's focus on development. This was the first time we're seeing him talking about direct politics. Now, could one of this, what's happening at the IEBC, have to do with that debate? That probably someone is trying to change the discussion because now we're no longer talking about that referendum or reconstitution of the executive. Now we're talking about IEBC. Gladys.
Well, I think my own view is we have the president and His Excellency Raila shaking hands. Then we have a memorandum which has issues on it, and one of the issues is inclusivity, electioneering, all these issues, you know, around that would make Kenya a better country. And I think for us to have that conversation moving forward, of course there would be discussions around, and Parliament has a bill in front of it around changes to the Constitution. So you cannot rule out the fact that the wars at the IEBC might be related also to the issue of the referendum. Yeah. Because
that discussion, and I'm sure whoever made those pronouncements at that church service on Sunday was hoping that this was a discussion to feature on the headlines this week, that this is what Kenyans were going to talk about. Should we or should we not change the structure of the executive? But now we've forgotten about it. It's nowhere in the dailies. Now we're talking about IEBC. If at all that was the intention, it worked perfectly.
If that was the intention, it worked perfectly. But I really want to think that if you look at the statement that was made by the commissioners as they resigned, they seemed to have pointed out at internal wars and fights in the manner of in which they conduct their own commission business. And what came out for me is that there were issues about the tendering and basically commercial interests. And you know, Kenyans must also try to look and see whether there are commercial interests from the commissioners. And this case of commercial interest was also coming out very strongly before the August elections. You remember there were people questioning where the ballot papers would be printed and by who. Not necessarily for purposes of the integrity of the ballot, but for purposes of commercial interest. So for me, I want to dissociate that with the debate ahead of us.
Yes.
This is my position. Whichever way they were going to be taken out of the office, one, I support that they should leave now, all of them.
They were going out either way.
They were either way going out, and they were not going to be the ones carrying out any referendum or any elections going forward, you know, especially the general elections. Mini elections, by-elections, they could do. But
even the referendum, they were not to touch it.
The referendum, I do not see the possibility of any of these commissioners being there. There is too much baggage on them, whether the baggage is their own or and mud placed on their face and their body, so that it was not possible. You know, people have doubted them, they have questioned their integrity, and now the way they are now coming out, even after elections, obviously they are not a team. And there is no way a group that is not working as a team can be responsible for, you know, also referendum can be manipulated. And really we can't go that route. I think that the debate over the weekend about the referendum just brings too much politics too soon. People are tired. I don't know where I come from and the people I represent in Murang'a, Mount Kenya region, we are tired of politics. We would like Kenyans to be given space to even now reflect back on the disunity, divisions. We can now start telling them who we shall elect in 2022 before they have even settled on who they elected this time.
But it's interesting.
So I really would beg, and I want to agree with the Deputy President, that we should now tell Kenyans, because we have been given the opportunity, including my sister here and myself, we have constituencies. There are promises we made. Every single member of parliament made promises. We should be putting the government to task and to question so that they can deliver on the services. I want more electricity.
But what the Deputy President did at the weekend was not talk about development. He took a stand against the referendum.
He was saying that because
point.
Referendum is a major political debate, and if we start that one now, believe me or not, Kenyans can forget about development.
Do you think that Deputy President himself has started that debate by saying no?
I think he's the one who started that debate, because nobody in, I think a few MPs praying somewhere and saying we want this or the other is not good enough to get the Deputy President reacting in the way that he did. So in his response and the way he did it so passionately, this is what has begun the referendum debate. For me, I want to agree that it is time for Kenyans to begin, settling into
this term,
settling and for us leaders also to work on how we develop our constituencies. However, there is a process that was begun by His Excellency the President and His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga. That process is a process of examining what are the issues that have bedeviled Kenya, especially around elections. And that process, there is a roadmap for that process. And that roadmap, I'm sure, will have what are the issues? How do we resolve these issues? Resolving these issues might include changes in the laws of Kenya and changes in the constitution. It might include that in the process of having that conversation. So let us let that process that was begun by His Excellency the President, His Excellency Raila, let it proceed. Let us focus on delivering to our constituencies. It was premature to say no. Even before the question has been put, it is premature to just say no, it is never going to happen. Let the process take its course.
Yes.
This matter will come to Parliament, it will go to JLAC, they will look at it, they will say, okay, yeah, there are some changes that are required.
Yes.
There's already even a bill before Parliament regarding some by Kamket regarding some of these changes. So let that process take its course. Let's not jump in and start saying no.
Do you agree, Alice Wahome, that the Deputy President probably jumped the gun in reacting the way he did to that?
I think he was reacting against too much politics. I think even Deputy President was in the politics, was in campaigns. He is one of the people who must be very tired, considering the route, the process, election these people did not actually also go for the second election, so they are not as tired as we are. We want to start delivering on our promises.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
They were resisting the whole time.
They were resisting, they were not into the campaign.
But Mheshimiwa, you must agree that the Deputy President, he stands the best chance, according to the latest poll, of actually succeeding President Uhuru Kenyatta. He's in the lead. He would want that position, if at all he becomes president, undiluted. The fact that you're discussing whether or not to actually spread out that power and include the position of Prime Minister definitely does not leave him in a comfortable position.
Actually, I believe Kenyans have gone crazy in terms of positions. And if Kenyans don't understand that we are already, the wastage in terms of salaries, payments, and there is no more additional seats that will bring peace or unity in this country. What will bring peace and unity is actually debate about inclusiveness. Has nothing to do with the positions. For me, I think it has everything to do with the resources and the management of those resources, and the leadership, the top leadership is able to give. People must be able to agree. The way, even if we change the constitution, unless we remove opposition politics, there will always be somebody very close in this country that will be almost, what kind of competition is there if the seat of the deputy president, the president and the deputy president is not such a competition that to give a close run in terms, and that's why we even had provisions for runoff. It was anticipated that it should be severe, it should be aggressive, it should be deep, and therefore...
So you do not necessarily support a creation of more positions at the top?
It shouldn't, because the next person who is fighting to occupy, it will not be one person, it's two people, and it will be very close. So will that person now again say, because I got maybe 100 members of parliament and I had 8 million votes and the other one got 9 million votes, then another position must always be created? You see, we will always be then changing the constitution. We need to agree to the point where Hillary Clinton won the popular vote and agreed that Trump, because of the arrangement and structure of their constitution, will be the president of the United States. That is a very hard thing, because even in our constituencies, that's democracy. Even in our constituencies, you may win with just 200 votes.
Yes.
Are you going to have 2 members of parliament because the next person lost by 200 votes? Okay. So you know, Kenyans have a problem and with positions, and it is how we devolve the authority that we get. It's how we ensure that because my brother or my sister lost to me, I become magnanimous. And it's also very difficult, even for us, my opponents, you know, I mean, to be able to embrace them requires a lot of magnanimity.
Do you agree that we do not necessarily need more positions at the top?
Yeah, no, what I want to say 2 things. One is, as far as 2022 is concerned, I don't think there's anybody who's campaigning more than the deputy president for 2022, because every weekend you must hear people say 2022 it's this, 2022 it's that. They're all over the place. So I think that conversation around who is politicking the most, I think it is clear to Kenyans who is politicking the most. But then on the issue of creating more positions, as I said, we must have a conversation. This constitution that we have currently was enacted 8 years ago. We have gone to 2 elections now under this constitution. There are many things that we have agreed, and that were agreed by our 2 leaders, that these issues are bedeviling Kenyans. So we need to have a conversation. Is this current structure of government working? As members of parliament, we need to be able to listen to Kenyans. We hope that JLAC can drive a conversation around, without first taking hard positions, such as what the vice chair is taking here today. Without first taking that kind of hard position, we need to listen to Kenyans. Even the bill that is before us, there's going to be public participation. Let us listen to what Kenyans are saying. Let us listen to what key stakeholders are saying. But for me, I do not think it hurts to make changes to the constitution, so long as Kenya as a country can remain cohesive and move forward. I think the issue of cost is neither here nor there, because a contested election and the kind of push and pull we have had has cost this economy much, much more than anything around a single position would. So I think the cost has been so high, every Kenyan feels it in their pocket. So I think the issue of cost and so on should not be a big debate on the table. What we should be looking at, because even what we lose in corruption, all these things, is much more than what we spend. I can't say that what public officers earn can be called wastage. No. What members of parliament, members of county assemblies, not the wastage is more even with corruption and all these other things. So for my view is,
it is a necessary discussion.
It is a necessary discussion. Let's keep our cards open. I am not opposed to opening up the constitution and looking at what arrangement best serves us as a country and within our unique challenges. And our challenges are so unique, you perhaps cannot compare them to the United States of America or any other democracy.
And of course, that's a discussion that whoever made those pronouncements was hoping that we will start this week. But unfortunately, IEBC came in the way, and now we're talking about IEBC. But the conversation will still continue. Should we create more positions at the top? At the executive level, should we have the positions of Prime Minister and others as well to try and accommodate those who feel marginalized? That discussion will continue having it. But for now, let's go back to IEBC, because now it is the one making headlines. And a tweet here by Norman Magaya, that's the CEO of NASA. He says, henceforth, political parties should nominate IEBC commissioners. Neutrality and impartiality in Kenyan electoral process is a fallacy. Every Kenyan has an entrenched political inclination. Let's stop the lie. Because now the discussion moves to how exactly do we go about reconstituting the IEBC that we now say it's on its last days. This one we are done with it. How?
You see, the good thing about Kenya is that now we are in quite a good democratic space. And whatever positions one hold, you cannot stop debates in this country now. Except that we need to guide healthy discussions in terms of development, in terms of moving forward, even the IEBC, moving the country forward. I was talking about my sister is saying that there is no big cost really on the country in terms of peace, and I agree with her. My problem is that if we think that we will resolve the challenges that we are facing, then we are likely to miss it. That's what I'm saying. It's not positions that are likely to. If inclusivity then will mean then the positions should be brought on board. Then, but I can tell you we will have missed a lot. We need to have the country discuss. And my position is I'm not here to discuss these issues as the vice chair of JLAC. For sure, I'm here to discuss these issues as a Kenyan, as a member of parliament for Kandara, as Alice Muthoni Wahome. And there is no debate right now in terms of the referendum, in terms of moving forward that really has been seized. You see, a bill by a member of parliament cannot stop me discussing the larger issues. Except that those particular issues I cannot maybe arrive at a conclusion because the conclusion is by the committee, and that's how committees work. And finally, the committee works for the House. There will be time for debate. So, the panel, that tweet is a good tweet. I think he's giving his view of how we should.
The suggestion that we should leave it to political parties to pick.
He's giving his view. He's not saying this is what should happen. That is a view, and it's a good view. But you cannot leave the political parties and politicians will be involved. Will play a big role as to who. Don't you think that is part of the problem that for so many years we've actually allowed politicians to do this over and over again? Because the question of elections and IEBC is actually politics. The biggest stakeholders, you are going to involve stakeholders, then you even...
We'll never agree on anything.
No, we agree. We do agree. I think there will be an agreement. We must also encourage Kenyans, and we must stop being completely very self-centered. We must encourage Kenyans that there will be an agreement. The panel is a big discussion. It's not a small discussion. And I think that is where the handshake is likely to help. That is where the church leadership, the faith-based leadership will help. That is where social media will help. That's where parliament will help. That's where other leaders and analysts, they're also analysts. That's where the media need to be very candid and direct, prod the right questions. We should be able to come with the panels that takes care of all those interests. Because it's a matter of balancing the interests.
To the majority leader in the National Assembly, Aden Duale, speaking yesterday to Citizen TV, he said he actually blamed the religious leaders for picking Chebukati. And said they picked Chebukati and we disagreed, so blame the religious leaders. Do you agree with him?
No, I think the process that was agreed on at Windsor needs to be reviewed, because what was agreed on at Windsor is the Parliamentary Service Commission will take, was it 2 gentlemen and 2 ladies, and then I think there was some sort of negotiation there so that the parties would bring these people, and so they did, and then the religious leaders.
This is a selection panel.
The selection panel.
Yeah, we'll have more people than politicians.
So then the religious leaders, sort of came on board as well. Every religious body, whether it was the Muslims and so on and so forth. But then what they did, and this happened when we were just going into an election, and so everybody was looking for their own, out for their own interest. So those the Chebukati was number last on the list. He was essentially
position number 5 or something like that.
He was not the best. Then out of the 3 names that were sent to the president, Chebukati was like the least, had scored the least, But then there was the gentleman called was it Olekina or
Masai,
you know, the Masai
Olekina.
gentleman? Yeah, it was Olekina, I think. And then there was somebody else. And then there was but the person who scored the highest in the interviews was Zephaniah Aura. But I think because of his where he was not from the right place or whatever, so he was dropped. So the system of selecting IEBC commissioners must be reviewed, because taking 3 names to the president, who was a candidate at the time, and asking him to pick one, really, even if he was an angel, who was he going to pick? He was going to pick someone whom he has, whom he sees probably cannot take a firm position or whatever it is, and he probably read right in Chebukati.
The weakest to achieve a certain purpose.
That is I think, of course, any politician, you would look at what would work for you at the time.
Or work for the country.
And that is why, when you're in a race, you look at what works for, what will work for me in this circumstance. If I was running for something and then I was brought a panel, I would choose the person I think would work best for me.
Do you agree with Magaya when he says that political parties should nominate, not even the panel, should nominate IEBC commissioners?
Yes, I agree. I agree that is one of the positions that should be considered. That this idea that we
nominate IEBC commissioners.
Yes.
You see, we have to have a panel first.
This idea that we are pretending that there will be people within the commission who will be impartial, and I think that is the point Norman is making, that there will be people who will be impartial, they will have no position, they will be very, you know, this is what
even church leaders are not impartial.
No, this is, if you put them in a booth and ask them to vote, they will vote for someone. So nobody really is impartial. So we should agree that nobody is impartial and say,
just leave it to politicians.
Gladys Wanga, no, Gladys Wanga, you are at the IEBC representing a key stakeholder in the upcoming election called NASA. Alice Mudhoni Wahome, you are representing a key stakeholder in the upcoming election called Jubilee. So and so, you are representing the smaller parties. So and so, you are representing this interest. Then, within the IEBC commission, we know. We are not pretending anymore that we are impartial. We know that this is the position, and therefore, I'm looking out for the interests of my...
But have we done that before?
We have done that before, like the IPPG in 1997, and I think it worked for that period.
Yeah.
But now this is a different period. You know, we have also public participation. We will have a big debate about this, and the stakeholders we are calling even the faith-based, the civil society, definitely have to be involved in arriving at what kind of panel will now go to select the people now to be forwarded for appointment. That I can tell you, so there will be a debate
at 2 levels. Just selecting the panel before we even come to debating who should be interviewed.
Agreeing on the panel is a big debate itself, because even Kenyans should contribute. You see, it's about even changing the registration, where there will be memorandum, there will be call for public participation. That means the faith-based can come there and say we should be represented, and they have a right to even say so, or we should be heard, and this is our position. The civil society will also do the same. So, you know, you can't shut any particular interest group and say the political parties. I agree with when she says, you know, when you see it's Jubilee who is giving their views, they will obviously give views that are favorable to their political party interests. Likewise, therefore, even the civil society, if they are talking about human rights or democracy, that is their particular interest, they will be forwarding. But I think, you know, we have had elections before. I don't even think this is maybe this is just a different type of election, because even 2007 was not really a very neat election. There were still disagreements. We managed to go over it. 2013 was much better. This was getting to be very nasty. I think we need to deal with the issues that be deviled and agree and have some memorandums and agreements of how to leave IEBC. Once we agree that these are our commissioners, this is the IEBC, this is the face, then we walk out, we move out, and agree that this is the forum to hold them accountable.